All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 7 o'clock, and we welcome you to the American Fork City Council regular session meeting tonight. We are working off an amended agenda. We'll begin before the meeting with a public hearing. Two items that we have is receive public comment on proposed vacation of a portion of a right-of-way located along 900 West from 350 South to approximately 620 South due to the reduction of right-of-way width requirements. Is there anybody present that would like to make public comment concerning this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the second item in the public hearing. We are here to receive public comment on a proposed vacation of a portion of the public utility easement at 714 North 700 West Circle, Lot 14 of Mitchell Springs subdivision. The public utility easement along the rear yard line would be reduced by 5 feet. Is there anybody here that would like to make public comment? We'd have you come forward if you just please state your name for the record. And
yes, thank you.
Okay.
I feel like I should say to the bench here. My wife coached me on what to say, so hopefully I can say it right. My name's Chad Karnaseka. We live on this lot. It's a little bit of a unique lot because it backs up to a public road. And so we are asking to vacate that easement because we're trying to put in a pool, which will be fun. We'll invite you over after, but
we'll hold you to it.
All right, there you go. We have had blue stakes out. There's the picture of it. You can see the public road on the back side. We have had blue stakes out twice. The main power line is within a foot of the easement there, or of the property line. So, is there anything I missed, Michelle?
No, there's just no lines running through it. So.
Okay.
There's nothing in that 5.
There's not. No. Yeah, and we do have letters from all the utilities saying that they would grant that if the city will approve that. So, anything you need from me?
No, just
Okay.
we'll be over for the party.
Okay. All right.
Maybe.
All right. Yeah, good to see you. How are you?
Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to make public comment concerning this item? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll move on to the regular session. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, after which we'll have an invocation by Councilmember Taylor, and then I will conduct the roll call. If everybody please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, as we bow our heads and come before Thee at the beginning of this City Council meeting, we are grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy that allow us to be here, to participate in city government, and to conduct the affairs of American Fork City. And we ask Thy guidance and Thy help. We pray that we will be good stewards of the resources that we have, with time, with people, with process, and these different things, that we will be able to conduct the business efficiently and do so in a manner that would benefit our great citizens and the businesses and all those who come through our great city. Father in heaven, we are very mindful of Thy goodness and the moisture that we have received in this past week, and we importune Thee to please continue to bless us, that our state may be able to come from this drought, that we will be able to have cooperation from our citizens and our businesses and the churches and the school district and all those who look after this precious resource. We pray, Father in heaven, that Thou will bring the moisture that we need, and that as we receive, that we might be good agents, that we will not waste, and that we will work together to make the situation better. We are thankful, Father in heaven, also as we come on this great Memorial Day weekend, and pray that our hearts and our minds, that we will pay tribute and honor those who have provided freedom in our behalf, that our minds might be focused on the goodness and the blessing of freedom, that we will not take these things for granted. We are grateful for Thee and for all of the many blessings which Thou dost bountifully bestow upon us, and pray now that we will do Thy will this night. And we thank Thee for all of these blessings and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, now conduct the roll call. Councilmember Hunter? Here. Councilmember Shelton?
Here.
Councilmember Barnes?
Here.
Councilmember Carroll?
Here.
Councilmember Tater?
Here.
Item number 2 on the regular session is a 20-minute public comment period. If anybody would like to come forward, make public comment, we would ask you to state your name and limit those comments to about 2 to 3 minutes. Be brief. And so we'd now invite you to come forward at this time. Seeing none, we will close the public comment period and we'll move on to item number 3, our city administrator's report. David?
Mayor and council, thank you. Just wanted to report a couple things. The city float is complete. And Camden took about 4.5 hours to drive it from where it was constructed because he could only go a maximum of 20 miles an hour. But he did arrive safely, and so we have it, and it looks great. So I think you'll be happy with that. Wanted to also report that the roundabout at Art Dye is also complete. So if you see Scott Sensenbauer just doing circles up at the park, you'll know he's enjoying the new roundabout. And on June 27th, we will close the parking lot. That's a Sunday. It's the last Sunday of June. We will close the Art Dye parking lot completely to do a resurfacing of that parking lot. And so we'll have to limit access to the park and make sure no one drives on that for a day. It'll be open the next day, so it'll only take 1 day. We're trying to do that on a Sunday so that we won't affect a lot of the sports programs. So just wanted to report those things. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Now move on to council reports, and I'll start with Councilmember Tater.
Nothing to report tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councilmember Carroll.
I do have a few things to report. I also was going to mention the new float. We're a little excited. We don't get a new float every year. Maybe every 3 or 4 years when we can't duct tape it together anymore. We get a new one. So this one really highlights our new logo as well as our location at the mouth of American Fork Canyon. So I hope that it reflects American Fork City, and we're excited about that. Just a reminder that the Chamber of Commerce is hosting the Memorial Day golf tournament this Friday at Fox Hollow. That'll be a good event for them. And a preview of what's coming. I don't think I've mentioned that this year, Miss American Fork, we have a new director. We're really grateful for all the work that Jenny Thacker did for us as a volunteer basis as the director. And this year we have another volunteer. I don't believe she lives in our city either. They're just gracious enough to accept the invitation. Her name is Dorinda Ledkins, and she's helped with our pageant for many years and understands the ins and outs of what it takes. Miss AF will be going on like a normal year on, I wrote January 26th on my notes, but I'm pretty sure that means June 26th at AF Junior High. And in the same vein, Still Days, as you probably already know, is on July 5th through the 10th. But we are planning on having that be a regular Still Days. Most of our events are outside, so that should help people to feel comfortable in that regard. But we're planning our events full scale. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Thank you for that report. Councilmember Barnes.
That is wonderful news. A full Still Days. That's just a great celebration for our community. Met with Historic Preservation Committee last week. We are in the process of reviewing the document and the ordinances that will be presented to City Council in a work session here in the near future. And we'll go through that at that time. That committee has been very diligent, and they are opinionated, let me just put it that way. And they're good people to have on a committee like that, because once in a while they have to share their opinions with people that don't quite see eye to eye with them, and so it creates some good exchange. Next item, I'll do this in first and then follow it. Just wanted to thank Councilmember Taylor for that prayer, especially the parts kind of in the middle about those who serve and about Memorial Day. That's obviously very close to my heart, and I was raised that way. So when things happened, it became very natural. There will be a program that will be on the city website starting Monday morning. I don't have an exact time. Do you have a time? So it's okay. Just know that it'll be on the city website, and you can watch that program. And I think it's important that we teach future generations, starting with our children and or grandchildren, that freedom isn't free. And it requires, in my opinion, constant vigilance to maintain that. And so I would encourage everybody who's here or who is listening, trying to make sure I say it right, Terry Lynn, so that it doesn't get in the minutes incorrectly, but encourage everybody to just, when you see a veteran, just thank them for their service and for their sacrifices and all that they've done. And that's enough. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that report. Councilmember Shelton.
Thanks, Mayor. Glad to hear that Camden was able to drive the float back successful. I'm guessing it's the same chassis that probably was there when Clark was working at the city, or they finally update it?
It's actually on its own trailer. So
Oh,
we
wow.
pulled the truck.
It's a trailer now. That's a big
that's-
improvement.
It's a downgrade.
Is it a downgrade? I just remember that chassis. I don't think we had a new float for about 10 years when I was on the Steel Days Committee. So that's how long it took. So literally it was duct taped together, and that chassis, I'm sure, had a lot of super glue included on that as well. So it's glad to see we're on a more rotating schedule and to see the logo and the branding of the city move forward. Other than that, Mayor, I don't have any other things to report.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councilmember Hunter.
I just would mention that we started the process of putting together the Parks and Trails Committee, reassembling that, and just want to thank staff for the time and working towards that. So look forward to being able to work with them.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. All right, item number 5 is the mayor's report. I would like to publicly thank the citizens of American Fork for their vigilant efforts to conserve water. It is certainly, we have looked at the data, and in 2 weeks, we saved 160 million gallons of water by just not watering for those 2 weeks. Now, we know everybody didn't participate. It was voluntary. Lehigh saved almost 200 million gallons, and I know the other cities, proportionate to their population, saved an immense amount of water just by delaying 2 weeks to water. And so the mayor is going to be issuing a challenge to all residents and businesses to reduce their water by 20% this year. If we do that, we will save, in this city, we will save 750 million gallons of water by just taking those, dialing it down 5-10 minutes, whatever that 20% might be. And so that is going to be a message that you'll hear from the mayor's office between now and January. So, but I really appreciate those that have participated. I had the opportunity to attend 2 ribbon cuttings today. One was with Silver Wolf. They're a consulting firm for construction companies, people that are just maybe in a business that have a little too much clerical work. They're kind of an elastic that can help them bill, bid, whatever it might be. It was down in the area by Bamberger Park, there by in that complex. And then we went to, right after that, we went to Apollo Burger. Everybody's been waiting for the Apollo Burger to open, and they didn't disappoint with a hamburger today. So 2 new businesses in American Fork. And one last thing, last week I had the opportunity to attend the American Fork Symphony. The mayor needs more culture, and he did get some that night. It was a great night. It was at the junior high. I would have to say near capacity crowd at the American Fork Symphony, maybe more than I've seen at one of those in a very long time. People are wanting to get out and get back to normal. So that is the mayor's report. We'll now move on to the common consent agenda, consisting of 5 items that are before you. Has there been any noted changes on the minutes, Tara Lynn?
Yes, we did have several, and they're minor in nature. If you'd like me to read through them, I could. They were all minor changes.
I would just say whoever submitted them, are they comfortable with the edits?
I submitted some of them.
Yeah.
They're basically typos or little corrections. They're not changing anything meaningful, so yes, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay.
I did submit one that did change the meaning of a sentence, but it just clarified correcting the word.
Yeah, it says speak full-time economic development director rather than downtown economic study. That was Councilmember Shelton referred to.
All right.
Mayor, with that, I'll move approval of the common consent agenda as presented.
Okay.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Shelton, second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to the action items. Review and action on appointment of the following individuals to the Planning Commission. Jenny Pay, term ending 2025, and Bruce Franson, term ending 2026. Any questions, concerns on these 2 individuals? I think they're well qualified, willing to serve, and it'd be a great addition to the commission.
I think it's a great thing to know that it took 2 people to replace Councilman Hunter.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but I appreciate you doing so.
Mayor, I'd move to appoint Jenny Pay and Bruce Franson to the Planning Commission.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor,
I'll second it.
second by Councilmember Hunter. Any discussion on the motion?
Just a couple of questions real quick, Mayor. I'm assuming Jenny's a member of the community. I didn't see that she was a resident. A lot of Cedar
She
Hills
is.
experience. I'm guessing she's a resident but works in Cedar Hills, and so I just want to clarify that. I think it'll be great to have diverse backgrounds with both of them that will have unique perspective on the committee. And then the other question that I had is we're looking at different committees and things of that nature. Once upon a time, we talked about going back and redoing it. I don't know if it's in there for the Planning Commission, an attendance requirement that they attend so many meetings, and if not, then they needed to be replaced. Have we put that into our code yet, like we have other committees?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay. I would just highly recommend maybe staff look at that, or the Planning Commission discuss that. I know that's something we put in there, as well as potential removal. We talked about that, where occasionally if something was to happen and we lost confidence in someone being able to remove them, it's easier to have it in the code ahead of time versus trying to put it in the code after the fact. So those are 2 things I think that I would look to recommend.
Okay.
I don't know if this is relevant or usurps anything that you're saying, but just a comment that I think I recall the Park Tax Committee had like committee rules that did do some of that too.
Yeah, that was written in the ordinance. That was the first one we kind of did as the guide to it. And I know we kind of said, okay, let's retroactive, try to go back and look at it. So just when this popped up, it kind of came back to memory. Maybe it's something to discuss at the next meeting and see if that's something to add.
Okay. All right. It noted, and I talked to you about it, John, as well. So, all right, I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor, second by Councilmember Hunter, and I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 2 is a review and action on a resolution establishing the American Fork City Audit Committee. This will help us in many ways. It's something that our state auditor would like to see, but I think it's good practice. And the charter is it was in the packet. Is there any questions on this committee, its purpose?
I think it's great. I know we talked about it for a few years now, every time the audit comes up, and so I think it's great to finally add this component to it. A couple of questions I had on the charter, just to kind of match what we've done in other committees. One would be in section 1, it talks about the audit committee shall consist of 3 members appointed by the mayor. Usually we do appointed with advice and consent of the council, and didn't know if that would be good to put in there. It seems that it's going to be done by the advice and consent by the next agenda item that's on the agenda, but didn't know if it would be good to clarify that.
Sorry, this. So I think that's the intent of this. We can add the language to make it more clear, but it would be an appointment by the mayor and then with advice and consent by the council.
Awesome. And then 2C, kind of the same thing when it talks about vacancies. It says, shall be promptly filled by the mayor, but doesn't talk about advice and consent there of the council as well, and I'd assume that would come back. So those are the 2 things I'd love to have clarified. The other was, sorry, just scrolling down here. Item number 5, removal from office. It says the city council may remove any member of the committee for cause. I didn't know if we just put that they serve at the pleasure of the advice and consent and could be removed at any time with or without cause. Again, that's something we've discussed in the past, that if council lost confidence in a committee member, that it didn't have to be, wasn't for cause, and we didn't have to go through and prove it. It's just they lost our confidence, and we would vote, and they'd be removed, and we would bring somebody else in.
I'm wondering though, I don't feel strongly about this, but an audit committee should have some level of maybe step back aside from the council. They should be a little bit independent from others, so maybe
I think
it
they need to
should
be independent from the administration, is usually where you see that separation from, because we are the actual ones that have to vote and approve the audits, and so it's incumbent upon us. So it's kind of like a planning commission role, where they're there, they serve at the pleasure of the council, and if we ever lost any confidence, we would remove them. Kind of same way it would work in a board structure, typically is how that would function. And we're seen as being separate from the administration as
Sure.
the council.
Yeah, I just wouldn't want them to be, I would want them to be independent from both, ideally. They wouldn't be swayed by the council nor the administration.
Yeah, and I think the idea there is if it did something to lose the confidence of 3 council members, it would probably be something more than just something small that would be there. But anyway,
Okay.
like I said, I just know in the past, I don't know if that's something we want to ever do when we hit that speed bump. Hopefully we never have to, but if that's a hiccup that arises, I would just hate to have to find a reason and for cause and make that in a public meeting for removal. I would just say if you lost the confidence of the council, then at that point you're removed from office. So those are just my suggestions on the
I mean, I think that's an easy add. I think it makes sense. I wouldn't have any.
All right. If there's no objections, make a motion. We'll see where it goes.
I do have one other comment, actually.
Okay.
On 4A, powers and duties, the committee shall have such powers and duties as prescribed by the law. Is there any way to add the reference of what law, maybe like the code? Because we all know.
It's in reference to the state code in general. The creation of the audit committee is not required by code, but is a recommendation from the state auditor as a best practice. So we can add state code.
I'm just wondering, like, if you were looking at this, then you could go to the code where it delineates those powers and duties that were prescribed by the law that it's mentioning.
I think what she's referring to though is that there's not going to be a specific
Okay.
thing in
Okay.
state law, because this is something that's a recommendation but not a requirement.
kind of what happened is the state auditor came out and said, here's a scoring checklist. And if you score a certain point, it gives you a risk assessment. And part of that checklist to score good points on your annual assessment was having an independent audit. So
Yeah, but that's the creation of the committee. This is like, where do we find out what the duties and powers of a committee could be?
I guess the point is it hasn't been created by state law, so there's no state law saying you have to have.
There's
an
nothing to
audit
draw back
committee.
on.
And that sentence is confusing. That's all right, it's not a big deal. I'm not.
That's true, though. It's pretty ambiguous if there isn't the law there.
Yeah, and I'm not overly concerned about it. I was more thinking in practicality. I would love to be able to go to that code reference to look at it, but I'm not really overly concerned about it as,
You could reference just gap type procedures, because that's really what, and there is a reference to that somewhere else in there. I don't know exactly where, but it speaks to, generally accepted accounting practice or principles or whatever.
The
And we
fun
can
thing
also
is,
reference state code regarding the accounting practices for the city as well.
I love the GAP side. I wish government entities follow GAP, but they don't. So, wish they would follow GAP. Would make it a lot more easier in my mind, but we like to give ourselves a little more leeway.
Okay.
So
With that, I'll-
did we land anywhere on that?
I'm okay just leaving it how it is, I think, unless I've opened a can of worms about nothing.
Oh, you've opened a can of worms.
Mayor, I'll make a motion then to adopt the resolution establishing the American Fork City Audit Committee and Audit Committee Charter, establishing the structure and responsibilities of the committees with the following changes. In section 1, where it references appointment by mayor, to add with the advice and consent of the city council. In 2C, talking about shall be promptly filled by the mayor with the advice and consent of the city council for the unexpired portion of the term. And then in section 5, the city council may remove any member of the committee with or without cause. How does that sound, Sherilyn, as far as verb language?
Okay, have a motion by Councilmember Shelton,
Second.
second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Tater,
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Okay, item number 3 is review and action on appointment of the following individuals to the American Fork City Audit Committee. David Anderson, term ending 2024. James Hanson, term ending 2024. And Councilmember Ryan Hunter until replaced by the mayor. With consent of the council, of course. So,
So Mayor, I would move to approve the appointments of David Anderson, James Hanson, and Councilmember Hunter to the Audit Committee as recommended by Mayor Frost.
okay. All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Tater,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion on the motion?
I have two quick questions. It says term ending 2024. That's a long time period. Does this imply
January 1st?
January 1st or December
31st?
31st or any day in between? Do we want to get that specific? That's all I'm asking.
I look at that like end of the year.
And I'm fine with that.
So let's just say that. Let's just be.
Can
yeah,
we just say December 31st,
December 31st.
2024? The other question I have, again, it's the detail in me. We have 3 committee members, 2 of which are appointed. One's going to become the chair and one's going to become the vice chair. Can the city council member serve in either one of those positions? And the real issue here is if both of them end at the same time, there are always going to be brand new ones coming on, so to speak. I think we should stagger them somehow. One of them 2 years and one of them 3 years, or one of them 3 years and one of them 4 years, just so there's somebody there for a little continuity. that's just a suggestion. Not a big deal.
We do stagger our other committees, that makes sense to me.
That's
You know,
what
just
I'm thinking, yeah.
choose one and say they're 2025 or 2023.
Yeah, I think you'd want to go a year short because the charter says it's a 3-year term. Now, they can be reappointed, of course.
I understand.
But maybe if you do 2022 or 23,
Yeah,
you know,
23.
just to make it
So we
different.
can choose which one, does anyone have a preference who is 2023?
I would, talking to both those gentlemen, I would probably recommend having Dave serve longer. James has some other commitments. It's a little harder for him to meet, so.
So then, yeah, that would be, who made that motion? I think I did, didn't I? Yes, I did. So, Mayor, I don't know if I need to add clarity to that motion that suggests that Dave Anderson's term would be ending 2024, James Hansen's term would be ending 2023.
Okay.
And it would be December 31st.
And it
of
would
the
be
given year.
December 31st of that year.
Just out of curiosity, it says 3 years here, so from the time they are appointed, I assume that would just go for 3 years and go off. Do we need to have end of December? So it would just be every June? As they serve their 3 years, then they go off, or you want it to go on a calendar year? Just a question.
Question for council.
I don't know, I think we're getting weeds. I think December 31st is easy to remember, end of the year. I think was good.
With those dates.
Are you okay with those dates? We have a motion on the, we have a motion. Do you have a second?
Is that an amended motion?
Yes.
Second.
That's an amended
We
motion.
have a motion by Councilmember Taylor, second by Councilmember Carroll. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter.
I don't know if I can
You
prove
can.
myself.
You can.
You can.
Yeah.
You have to,
Then, yeah.
because if you don't, we're not
Hey,
gonna want
don't-
you on there.
Don't make me break a tie again. Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
All right, item number 4 is a review and action on an ordinance approving an amended overall concept plan for City Row Planned Community Development Project located in the area of 860 East, 620 South in the PC Planned Community Zone. Let me ask. Okay, I'll take that. Let's, I think that's a very good point there. We have people here for action number 5. This next on item 4 might take a little bit. We want to get the Carnesecas home, get them digging that hole. So, I'm going to move item number 5 up. And then, review and action on acceptance of an encroachment agreement on 700 West with Chad and Michelle Carneseca.
Mayor, I'd move to authorize the city to approve the easement encroachment agreement for 714 North, 700 West, and authorize the mayor to sign the document.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor, second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on the motion?
I was just gonna mention that we came to the city council when we moved here, a few years after we moved here for a similar, easement encroachment. And, that was our first interaction with the city council, or really the city of American Fork, so, I don't know, watch
Be
out,
careful.
I guess.
Fair warning.
We didn't see a stitch of food out of that.
Still waiting for that invite.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, and I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you to the Carnesecas. You're welcome to stick around. Okay, item number 4, review and action on an ordinance approving an amended overall concept plan for Lake City Row Planned Community Development Project located in the area of 860 East, 620 South in the PC Planned Community Zone. Adam, I'm going to have you come forward and just maybe just paraphrase where we're at with this and the action of the Planning Commission. We do have our Planning Commission chair. We might pick on him a little bit through the night. And so, go ahead.
I'll just give a brief background as to what they're looking for and what the Planning Commission recommended. So this is on the southern portion of the overall project. It's listed as Phase 1 on the screen. When this area was annexed and then subsequently approved for the master plan or the concept plan, this area was originally labeled as office commercial development. The applicant's coming forward and would like to amend that designation to take out the office portion and just rename it commercial. And then there would be a subsequent site plan which has not been reviewed by the Planning Commission yet, but was included just for conceptual purposes. They would like to do like a flex space office warehouse type of building in place of a traditional office building. The first time it went to Planning Commission, there was some question on how this would affect shared parking for the apartment project to the north. One of the key features when this concept plan was approved was that there would be a sizable area of shared parking, so when the office use cleared out, the residential use could kind of take over that spillover if it was needed. So the Planning Commission tabled it the first time around. The applicant prepared some additional information as far as what areas could be used for shared parking should this go office warehouse. And it came back to the Planning Commission, discussion ensued, it went back and forth again as to the merits of whether or not this should move forward. Ultimately, the Planning Commission recommended against the concept plan being changed, as they felt that the flex space or office warehouse really wasn't conducive to a planned community mixed-use project. And so that's what came before you, although it was not a unanimous vote by the Planning Commission that night. There was one that voted against the negative recommendation and actually wanted, would have voted for the change. And so again, it wasn't unanimous, but it did come forward with that negative recommendation. The applicants here, they can speak to their proposal as well, but that was a brief rundown of kind of where we're at. So.
Okay. All right. I'll just ask the council where they want to go with this. If I think I've met with the applicants. I don't know if everybody has. Is there new information? Do we want to have them come up and present something that we already know, or I'm just going to kind of let the council maybe direct this a little bit.
I just think it's fair if they're here to be able to listen to them and give them their day in court per se. They'd be able to present any changes or things that were at Planning Commission.
Okay. All right. Bring it up.
Thank you. For the record, Buck Swaney with MDP Land, Millennial Development. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Vendeline, I do have some new information. It's not so much new as it is a little bit better consolidation of information, because the record was very complex. And that's the thing that's what we're saying for a moment is I really appreciate the efforts of the staff on this, and I really appreciate the efforts of the Planning Commission, because something as big as Lake City Row is a very technical development. It involves lots of things that normal developments they don't involve. And so we're dealing with some very big things, macro utilities, a lot of parking questions, different kinds of uses that just, really they're complex enough that it takes a lot of commitment to understand them. And also one more thing, Terry Lynn, the note-taking was amazing. I think she made sure to get in there all of the things that were essential to understand the conversation.
Can I ask this from you, Buck? Is this presentation something that the Planning Commission has seen, or is this new to us only?
This contains, I would say, it's 95% things that they've seen, just some better context on some of it. Okay. So and I'll give a for instance so that you know what I mean by that. There's a spreadsheet in your materials where I did the parking counts to show the before and after. It's confusing enough that it really has to be explained. So I did a simplification of it. So this contains a few simplification slides, okay? That's the primary thing. I did want to give this, which is a reminder to everybody. I've always viewed Lake City Row as a collaborative effort between the developer and the city. And there's been a lot of progress. Importantly, we're way down the road on 620, 860, and Quality Drive. Between the three of those, we've put about $9 million into off-site infrastructure, things that were in the city's various IFFP plans that now the city doesn't have to pay for. Otherwise, they were going to be funded eventually through impact fees and so forth. And we've picked up almost all of the costs associated with those. Some will be refunded, but not very much. And so we've made an immense contribution to the development at the full scale of that quarter of the city. And so, you know, if you've been down there recently, you can tell it's dramatically improved the circulation and the mobility in, around, and through Utah Valley Business Park. And so I just want to emphasize that to remind everybody that we're on the city side and trying to do things that create wins for us and for the city at all times. Next slide, please. This is the simplified version of really what we're asking for. It starts with a 10% reduction in the entitlement for the project. So we're taking 250 units off the table right away. We're trying to package it all in as a win for everybody. And so the second thing is this commercial adjustment. We would be moving to a much less intense commercial type of use. There's a reason that office has 4 to 5 cars per 1,000, and this type of use has a lower parking requirement. It's because it creates 65 to 75% less traffic. And so between a reduction in units, apartments, and a change in the land use, the place is just going to have much less intense residential and commercial use. And then the third thing is, the third point, is that we'll continue to produce the adjacent shared parking like we always were going to. The quantities are slightly adjusted, but in the end, we actually produce a better net parking situation than under the original approved version of the plan, which we'll see in a second here. Next. So here's the simplified parking comparison. This is that big long spreadsheet condensed into just really what's essential. So you see 3 columns. The first is kind of description. Second is the approved master plan. The third is the adjusted master plan. This is an estimate, but it's going to be close. Residential units will decrease from 2,000. This is on the east side of 860, from 2,000 to about 1,700. The stalls required at 2.25 would have been 4,559. That's a reduction to 3,841. So you can see that's a lot less intense parking requirement or situation. At 1.8, that would have been 3,647, now 3,073 instead. And now, item C here, the deficit via the MOU we have with you, is the difference between the 2.25 and the 1.8. So under the master plan, because of the MOU, we got a benefit of about 912 parking spaces that we were working to replace or supplement through the shared parking arrangement. Now, adjusted for the uses that we are seeing, that number is more like 768. Now, item D is our shared parking. When we lay that whole site out there where that phase 1 is, and we try to figure out how much of the parking could have been pushed to the shared parking areas, the best we can do is about 600 shared parking units. That's under the existing master plan, the one that's already approved. Under this adjusted version, we can still fit, our estimate is at least 453. And in addition to that, as the developers went through the first 2 apartment complexes, they produced an excess of 197 units above the 1.8 requirement. So at the bottom of this is our net deficit. This is when we take the benefit of the MOU, that minus 912, plus the shared parking we're going to create, we would have had a deficit of about 312. Under the new arrangement, that deficit shrinks to 118. And so we have a more effective parking outcome because of the combination of things that we're doing in the delivered parts of our project and with the reduction in density. Next. Would you, okay. Because I would like an opportunity to address any questions about that as we go.
Do you want those now or later?
Actually, I'm okay to do it now, and I don't think it'll interrupt the flow of where we're going. Yes.
So your stalls required at 2.25 versus 1.8? You got 1.8 for your whole project, right?
No, just for the east side of the
Just for
project.
the east side?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, just for the east side, but that's.
Or for the west side, I'm sorry, for the west side of 860.
Right.
Yes.
The east side's not there yet. So that deficit number, the 912,
Mhm.
is the exact ratio of reduced units per your parking standard. So it's not, where are you getting the net deficit? That's not.
Yeah, so I'll explain it, and I'm pretty sure the calculations are good. The residential units on the west side of 860 that were anticipated in the master plan, 2,026. If you multiply that by 2.25, you get 4,559. That's how many parking stalls on the west side of 860 would have been required. At 1.8, the requirement would have been 3,647. So that's 2,026 residential units times 1.8.
But you were approved at the 1.8, right?
The MOU, through the MOU, yes, correct. Yes. And so if we want to look at this differently, if we want to take that out, that's okay. That, I think, would work more to the benefit of the conversation that I'm having. But however you want to look at it, I'm open to the conversation. Okay? And we can redo the math quickly if you want to as well. All right?
I'm just saying that according to the MOU, there's not a deficit. You meet the parking required.
That's correct. Okay, so the deficit is at the benefit of the MOU. Okay, so that delta is what the MOU gave us as an allowance, basically, that we're trying to replace through the shared parking arrangement and other things. Okay, so to be clear on that, this little 197 you see over on the side, that's because most of the two projects that have come through, they didn't land at 1.8, which was, they were allowed to. They landed almost at 2, 1.97 or something like that. So we've been producing more parking than the lowest allotment that was possible, just because we feel like that's the way that it's going to work best for the development to make sure that there's plenty of parking. All right? Okay, so there's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of ways we could slice it. I was just trying to be as inclusive of all of the data as I could. Okay, next.
Can we go back a slide or two?
Yeah.
Right there, number 2, you say Phase 1 commercial area is adjusted to allow flex office product with 1- and 2-story components. In your letter dated March the 15th, in the second paragraph, letter A, it says, commercial area be adjusted to contemplate 1- to 5-story commercial. Am I missing something? They both look like they're commercial to me, and one's 1 or 2 and one's 1 to 5. Help me if you would, please.
The 1 is the important part of it. It's still possible that on the next parcel over, we could say, okay, that makes sense for office if things change in the future, and we might want to go more intense than 2 stories. And I'm talking about, we would kind of need the whole site map to understand what I'm saying. Maybe you can pull that up really quick. Right there. So, you know where Kurt Vest's property is? Can you tell on this map? See where it says Phase 1 and there's an arrow? Down right there. Right where your cursor is, that kind of left-hand block of the property there. There's 5.6 acres there that Kurt Vest still owns. And that is not determined. The building we're talking about sits over on the right-hand side of this on the frontage of 860. So we want the flexibility to be able to go higher, but on this first project, we're looking for the flexibility to do 1- to 2-story product. Does that make sense?
It does, but it's confusing to me that you're putting all these different, I don't know what the word is.
I understand.
Scenarios,
Yeah.
possibilities, whatever, and to me, it's not quite tied down yet.
Okay.
So just so you know.
Yeah, the formal proposal is right here, and that's 1 to 5 story. That's the formal proposal. If this first site plan came through, it would be a 1 to 2 story product. Okay, so anything under 5 stories would be allowed, but that's all we're changing there, is going from 2 to 5 story to 1 to 5 story.
But again, you're still talking about right now 1 or 2 story, and there's a big difference between 2 and 5 stories, I do believe.
Yes.
I think, Kevin, what they're saying is the approved site plan would say they go up to 5, but they're saying right now their intent is only to do 1
For
or 2.
just for this section.
Right.
Correct.
But when I look at it, it's what the site plan's gonna say, so I'm looking at that at 5 story. If you come in less than that,
Yeah, if you come in less
Okay,
of the whole
got it.
things.
Okay, so 5 is viewed as a ceiling, but on this first project, it would be a 1 to 2 story concept. It would combine 1 and 2 story components.
I mean, you already mentioned this, but I think the point is, in the previous master plan, they were not allowed to have a 1 story. It had to be at least 2 stories.
Okay, Vendeline, could we go back to that other? Next. This is a new slide. It's important for context. We talked a lot in the notes and in the prior meetings about COVID-19 and how much it changed what we were doing. We initially started with an effort to do, we were going to do a 4 or 5 story building. And we started architecture on it with Woodbury, and then COVID happened. And in the wake of that, a lot of things changed, but you all know what's been happening to Office and Zoom, and it's been difficult for the market to get a grip on. This is to show you one of the current challenges we have. The new building that Woodbury's just completed, 152,000 square feet, has been leased up by Domo. And as Domo moves into that new building, you see these 4 blue buildings right there? That's 150,000 square feet of Class B office space that will be vacated. And right now, Woodbury's projection is it's going to take 3 to 5 years to fill that inventory, maybe longer. It just depends on what happens in the long term after COVID. So we have a whole bunch of this inventory now coming on the market here that to build a straight office building we'd have to compete with, and it makes it not feasible to do. So we have a real challenge on our hand to deliver that. I've got our building there in orange on this so you can see it for context. But this is a piece of information that will help people maybe to understand part of the challenge at hand.
and just understand about that proposed building is the one that you're saying 1 to 2 stories versus the 2 to 5.
Yes, correct.
Okay, I am just, I'm a little miffed right now. I'll tell you why. And maybe the mayor needs to have more control over this. Does any of the city council have this in their packet?
This presentation?
Yeah.
No.
So here we are on the fly, throwing out numbers, diagrams. Has the planning commission seen this at all?
No, they have not.
Okay. I'm just not feeling real easy about it. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to stop this, but I'm not going to allow it ever to happen again. If this information can get to us by Thursday, we'll have it in the packet. I just don't think it's fair to come towards the city council and to the mayor and to staff and start throwing out a whole bunch of changes. This is not typical of anything we've seen in the past, and I think it's not in proper order.
Mayor, just out of respect, I think that there are times when we have information in our packet and staff provides a slideshow that's not in our packet, but the information is still in there. It's just they packaged it in a different way and put it
Yeah.
together. And I guess I see this just as not necessarily anything new that wasn't in our packet. It's just a way to try to be able to be part of the presentation. But I agree, if you want to make that unilateral across the board, that all presentation material be there on Thursday, I'd be happy to support that.
Well, I would even say Friday, and if the council's happy to have information thrown on the fly, not even on your desk prior to a meeting, we can change the rules on that too. I just think this is not in the order that we have received. Now, are we a day behind? Are we waiting on some things, some information? Yes. Letter of the law, if you want to hold us to the letter of the law, I don't like this. I don't like this being thrown out right here in front of us right now, and especially where it hasn't been reviewed in a like manner with the planning commission, and I'd like to see it in their packet. I think that there might be a different decision, and different light. I would like to know how the council feels about that. And
I'll just jump in. I mean, I'll be honest with you, we got an email today with 2 documents, right?
Yeah, but-
Prior to that, we've had a lot that's been on the fly. So if we're gonna hold that same standard to everybody, then we need to have that same standard with staff. I look at this as it's an appeal process. Part of an appeal process is you're learning from what happened at Planning Commission, and you're coming back and saying, okay, where did we miss? Where's the miscommunication at, and how do we do it? And that's the reason for an appeal process. Now, if they came back with a whole bunch of new information that the Planning Commission did not vote on, and I see the critical elements being what the site plan is, which I believe was in the Planning Commission packets, then yes. But part of this is just communication and saying, okay, we missed the boat. We missed our communication with the Planning Commission. They came back with these comments. Now, how do we present and try to communicate our case in the best light through an appeal? So for me, through the appeal process, I don't see it changing the structural elements that the Planning Commission saw. It's all the same bones and structure of what they're asking for. Are they presenting it in a different light? Yes, but I think that's part of the appeal process and why the appeal process exists. Otherwise, what's the purpose of an appeal? If it's just going to be only the set exact data that's there. Just my opinion.
okay, I'm going to have our Planning Commission Chair.
It was denied.
John, you want to come up to the
This is not an appeal to the city council. It had to come to you folks anyway, whether we approved it or denied it. It's not an appeal. This slide here, we never saw at all with Planning Commission. We saw the basic site plan, but this with all the empty buildings and the new building coming in and taking away the people in the blue buildings, we never saw this slide at all.
If I could, Mayor, so this one, City Council is the authority for the final decision on this. It went to Planning Commission for a recommendation.
Right.
But it did not go to Planning Commission for an approval or denial to end there. So if Planning Commission would have approved it, it still would have had to have come to council for approval. It
Right.
would have come with a positive recommendation from Planning Commission.
So this is not an appeal at all tonight.
I appreciate the clarification. I guess I look at it as the same process. You know, it goes through a recommending body. It was denied. They're looking at it and saying, okay, where did we miss the boat? How do we better communicate? But I don't think there's any ask in this presentation that's different than what you guys voted on.
Well,
It's just
this slide here is completely different.
Sure.
We never saw that one at all. And
get
I just
that.
don't want to get sold down the river like we did on that concrete plant down below town earlier. You folks at that meeting saw stuff that we never had any idea was even presented. And yet you approved it and rewrote the site plan for the people. I don't want to go down that road again with the Planning Commission. We deserve better than that. And this is the slide we haven't seen at all. We had no information about the empty buildings and the new building taken over.
okay, how does the other council members feel? And maybe it's about process, I guess, as much as anything.
I feel like I'm neck deep in it, and I want Buck to finish it out. I want to. I mean, it's going to come back to us anyway. We're going to decide whether or not that happens. I feel like we're kind of down the road. I'd like to finish where we are so that I can figure it out, or have an appointment with him later. Or this is better for me, and I love the Planning Commission notes, and I've mentioned that. I haven't gone back and watched it because I don't have the habit Rob does, but I like getting the information right now, but I'll go through the process the same as anyone else. I mean, I don't like this being the situation as you've mentioned, but I feel like, you know, we're down the road a bit, and so I would be in favor of finishing to understand the justification and the need for what we are talking about. But that's me.
Okay.
Mayor, I just, sorry, did I step on your sister? I almost said sister, I apologize. Mayor started, that was your fault.
It was, I didn't say it
caught you
though.
earlier.
I came close.
I would just say that I think man, I lost my train of thought now, because I was
I'm sorry.
in the wrong meeting. Gosh dang it. Rookie move.
Well, let's start with council member. Well, let's hear it, and then you can stink.
I would agree that it is a little bit convoluted for me, only because some of my concerns are The planning commission's denial based on the intent of the law and the ability of it to be cohesive as a project. And some of this packaging might help to solidify within their minds a different recommendation. And I guess for me it makes a difference because that's sort of where my hang-up is. And so I'll just say that.
So meaning, you feel like it would be better if this were going back and presented to planning commission and then
Yeah,
brought
I
to
do.
us?
Well,
I
I
mean,
think-
now, obviously, that's gonna be more comfortable for.
It's not just comfortable, it's more that I view them as the body that helps me to vet whether something is appropriate for the use in the zones that they look at day in and day out.
Right.
Whereas I'm more broad and I'm only cursory looking at those zones, I rely on a little bit of that body for that. And that when I was looking through this, I can see your point of view. Like I can see where you're coming from, but then I was kind of torn between the two, and then I'm looking at, well, the planning commission then knows the intent of the zone a lot better than I do, so I'll go with that. But then that sort of muddles it, thinking about, well, maybe they would have a different.
Just to go along with that, Mayor, I think it comes back to the planning commission. I don't think our view is gonna change because putting office warehouses in this location is against the general plan. That was part of our denial in the first place.
Then it's irrelevant.
It doesn't fit the general plan to start with, but office warehouses in this location.
If we're gonna say every time a new slideshow comes in, we gotta go back to the planning commission, and we're gonna put that in our code, so I think if we do it to one, we gotta do it to everybody. It's gonna be hard to have some efficiencies. Again, I think the bones and the structure and the ask is the same. Presentation may be a little bit different based upon what they learn from communication, but I think that's part of the process, to be honest with you.
Mayor, sorry if I can just interject, and I think I did record it and say, I wrote it down, so I don't. But I come with a little bit of a different perspective, having been on the commission when this originally came to the planning commission. And I actually made the motion to table it, to come back to planning commission for that information, because I wanted to understand some of the slides that you put together, although not in this format, it was in the longer, more convoluted Excel spreadsheet. But I think if I'm in the developer's shoes and he's already aware, they are already aware of a recommendation for denial, this is the opportunity for him to say, but hold on, we're asking for public input or input from the developer as to why this makes sense to consider or not the recommendation that was given by the planning commission. And, dare I say, last ditch effort to say, this is why maybe we were misunderstood or what have you. This information could lead to a tabled option from this body to send it back to the planning commission for their review based on this evidence or this information. So that, to me, is why this is at least
Okay.
considerable.
Okay, I think that helps me out a little bit more and where you're at. I wouldn't say that we characterize one slideshow as everything, Councilman Shelton. Let's not jump to a conclusion of one thing. So, Buck, go ahead.
I acknowledge all of this, and I apologize for the uncomfortable feeling that you have about it. I don't want to create that.
Well, I'm not a control freak, if
Yeah.
anybody knows me, but when we start looking at staff and we start throwing out things real fast and numbers, I think that there's some order that needs to take place, Buck.
Yes, I can comprehend.
And I would I would hope you'd respect that in the future.
Yes, sir. I will actually skip through a little bit because I do not want to deepen the challenge with this. The bottom line is we spoke at both planning commission meetings about the changes in the market being the primary driving force for why we're coming to you. It's not because we're playing a shell game. It's not because we're trying to get something. It's because the market's changed under us. I don't think that I had, let's say, I didn't make the proper opportunity to explain exactly how. So this is my first chance to explain a simple way in which the market has changed. So we spoke about it abstractly. This is a concrete example. I wish I had had it with me at Planning Commission, but I didn't. So that's why I brought it forward. Not to change anything about what we're asking for. This doesn't change anything about what we're asking for in the zone update. This is just supporting information so you can understand our perspective. Okay, thank you. Next. This is the site plan. We've had a few site plans, but basically I want to present this to explain to everybody that the Planning Commission saw a couple of different versions of this. It's been a slightly moving target, but only a little bit. And the important thing is their shared parking concept continues to work here. We push over 100 parking spots up to the north side of the parking lot adjacent to the apartments. Our commitment to you when you gave us the MOU was that every time we brought a site plan in, the site plan would have a shared parking arrangement, that we would push or force a bank of parking up against the apartments to create that benefit. And in this case, over 100 units sit there in easy walking distance into the lower apartments, and consistent with what we committed, we will continue on every site plan to make sure that we observe the shared parking amenity with a significant supply of parking. Okay, next. And again, a visual on the building. So we're keeping a two-story aesthetic. It's a building that has significant office, but also the opportunity or the ability to be converted into more office in the future. But the Planning Commission, and in your packets you all saw versions of this as well. So it's an attractive building, and it doesn't give off the air of being an industrial building at all. Has about 3 times more glass than a typical industrial building has. And it's meant to maintain and protect the office aesthetic. Next. It's just, this was in the original approval materials. It's adjusted with the notes down below on walkability and mixed use. But that red circle is the half-mile walking perimeter around the core of the project. And all of Utah Valley Park sits within this. In Planning Commission and City Council meetings in the past, everybody's seen this. So the whole entire business park sits in a walkable distance to the core of the apartments. So I just wanted to bring that as a reminder. Next. And we'll skip this because it's off topic.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions that I can answer for you?
What's the acreage of the parcel that you're requesting a change?
It is a total of 6 acres. 3 of it is currently in Millennial Development's ownership, and 3 of it is in Woodbury's ownership. The 3 acres in Millennial's ownership sit inside of the PC zone. The 3 acres in Woodbury's ownership sit in the PI zone, the industrial zone. And so the property is already straddling the industrial and the commercial, say, office use. And the way our building would be designed, it actually respects that pretty much. It would push the industrial portion of it down south toward that Utah Valley Drive access, and the office portion of it up north, more adjacent to the apartments.
It's, that business park is unique. We've got some stuff that was built back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and some of those buildings just to the north of Twin Labs is pretty much 100% stucco. That's there, that's office space. They've kind of gone in and tried to make it look a little Class A as you've gone in. And then as you go down and you look at, I'm going to call it the old Visa buildings. You know what I'm talking about, those 3 one-story brick buildings. I mean, as a kid, I got hired by Tony McGeary to go down there and wash those windows. So I got to appreciate the one-story nature of washing windows of those buildings. So I look at it not changing the character and nature of that area down there. You already have 2-story buildings, you already have 1-story buildings. I don't see where the 6 acres is going to change necessarily the character or nature of it. My bigger concern would be the look and the feel of it. So I appreciate what you've done to make that look more like a Class A office space versus those ones just north of Twin Labs that are pretty much 100% stucco. The flex space, I look at it from an economic standpoint, and that's what's in demand right now. And everyone's trying to question and guess what's the future of office space. I was on a training this week with a few big tech executives from Fortune 500 companies that were talking about it. Even locally, we're seeing huge reductions. You know, the Pluralsight building, the Weave building, the Homey building, all of those having reductions of 50% or more of what they were looking at historically. and I can see the supply and demand side of it. I think for me, a question comes in, I think this is a good compromise, because do we want to wait? We could hold off on this and wait 5, 10 years when that demand flips, if it does flip, to get developed. Or do we look at it now and say, hey, here's something that still would work within this zone and within this community? Again, I don't see it much different from what's already there.
I tend to concur. I don't, the aesthetic of the building and everything doesn't bother me at all. Those older buildings bother me more than anything. But, you know, I don't find a problem with that either. And understanding the market and everything that's going on with the new Woodbury building, I mean, that was a good illustration for me. I tend to not have, and I need to understand more with the planning commission on that. But I don't have a problem that much with the building, knowing that what we know and being in that circumstance myself. Am I going back? Am I not? I think it's a real difficult situation, scenario to be in. But the way it's been executed, at least in this example tonight, and the planning commission did have access to the building you showed, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm not hung up on presentation or multimedia. But with that, I tend to lean with the change, and I think that would be okay. But I'm always open to learn from people, and if nothing changes, your mind, John, or I'd love to hear what Ryan thinks about this. That would be helpful to me, because I do appreciate and look to the planning commission for that expertise. So.
Just want to clarify a couple things. So the south portion you identified as being owned by Woodbury is already approved in a PC or a PI zone, which allows for single-story industrial product already. The north portion of your proposal shows a 2-story office product, and really that is in line with what is already approved.
Correct. And the two are
The
connected.
difference
Yes.
is that these are now going, in theory, could be connected as one building.
Yeah.
What
It would be concrete. They would be connected.
Yes. And I have no reason to doubt that that's what you guys would do. Other than an attorney who would say, well, don't change your mind. Don't want to put words in our face. This, pessimist in me, but I am in, I know there was a lot of conversation, and this is, just kind of, maybe I'll just regurgitate some of what's already been here in the minutes from the planning commission, but there was a lot of conversation on protecting that truck traffic. We don't want to have a big, semi-truck roll through the middle of this apartment complex that was supposed to be, a Class A office building with cars pulling through instead of a truck. Personally, what you showed in your slide, I think protects that north end. If I'm driving a semi, I'm not going through that end of the building. It's literally designed for that purpose. As I saw it, I'm not an expert, but
Same interpretation, I never would guess.
that's me just looking at it from that standpoint. While I think it's really important that we follow staff because and the recommendation from our planning commission. This one's tricky because it comes from multiple visits with varying degrees of approval, or it certainly wasn't a unanimous decision through 3 different visits that I'm aware of. The other thing that I want to mention is that this was intended to be a walkable position, or walkable, but a 5-story office building is not a walkable. It's not like we're talking about this being it never was intended to be I'm going to walk to the neighborhood grocery store and get my hair cut and grab a bagel with a Starbucks underneath on the bottom floor. That wasn't the intent for this area as a walkable space.
Not on phase 1. That is correct. Yeah.
Again, I'm not a huge fan of this, but I think it's, in this scenario, I think it probably warrants a consideration of reversal only to the extent that it seems to lie. Frankly, I think it's going to be a better product, only because we're controlling the truck traffic. We're also And that's making the assumption that you stick with what you've just presented, which I don't know that we can hold you to that. But what you presented makes me lean to we're actually buffering the space to the homes, to the residential side. So that's just kind of my position on having been there a few times.
One of my questions is something you brought up. This is a concept plan that we're not legally bound to. How do we have any assurance that a nice building with extra glass and a large height, and this is something that maybe staff can help me or Buck on, how do we have some assurance that we get something that was presented to us?
Legally, I don't know how you would want to shape that, but ethically and legally, we would be willing and able to commit to it. Well, what you have seen is in architecture. We're good to go with what you have seen.
So as we talk about truck traffic, Buck, I'm not trying to railroad this, I'm not, but I see the really nice side of the building. Is there a back side of the building that has truck bays?
There is.
And they're gonna back through there, and they're going to take out whatever product, whatever your tenant might have, and who's to know at what occurrency that will happen?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that is not going to be in the way or present a safety hazard to anybody in that area? I mean, this is your project.
Right. I don't think it's going to be a hazard. We've tried to dot all the i's and cross all the t's on that. One of the things that we have as a commitment from the Ritchie Group, they have an entry that's built in that kind of connects their project to this. They're willing to make that not an automobile entry to kind of minimize the potential for vehicular conflict. But that also goes to, what the city would like to see in that context. Thank you. That's helpful. But right there, where that arrow is that you're seeing, that's an entry point that could be closed off, and the developer up there is willing to do that. So as far as truck conflicts, you can see where the bays would be. They're in the middle and lower left-hand side, and they'd be pretty well protected and sheltered from the residential part of the development.
Mayor, if I could, the question came up of how do we make sure that they're going to do what they're saying they're going to do, and the only way to do that would be through a separate development agreement. Because ultimately, amending this master plan doesn't bind them to what the buildings are going to look like, or even which way the building is going to face for the purpose of traffic flow. But a development agreement would. So if that's something that council wants to consider, to make sure that those elements are kind of ironclad and can't be changed, then we certainly can explore that with Buck. And we looked to do a development agreement once before, but we had a lot of other issues with this development and unanswered questions. But now that the development is progressing, I think we have most of those answers, and it would be something that we could likely put together.
Out of curiosity there, Sherman, what's does that development agreement go into in perpetuity? So 30, 40, 50 years down the road, as someone may want to come in and do something different, does that development agreement become binding, or is it just until the building's built and that's it?
So the development agreement would apply to the land, but typically we would put limitations in it so that if it wasn't built out by a certain time, essentially it expires. Because we wouldn't want something that says you can put this type of development here, and then maybe 15 years from now it's still not in, and we don't want that there anymore. Because the other thing a development agreement will do is vest them in the current ordinances. And so that's another reason you actually do want that expiration, so that as things change, you can change with it. But the development agreement, to make sure that buildings look the way you want them to look, is certainly something that can be done.
Is that something that is recorded with the land, or is that just a private document that is kept on record here, and if someone comes in to develop, we pull it out?
I don't believe we typically record them with the land.
The only thing I would suggest is somehow having that I know as time goes by, files and staff leave, just having that continuity that's there to have that, so, just whatever assurances we can get.
And we've done development agreements before on other projects, and we always have those records.
I would point out that because of the nature of the PC zone, whatever happens today, this isn't the end of it. The
Yeah.
building itself still has to go through planning commission and still has to come back to you again.
Councilman Taylor.
Mayor, John, I don't want to put you on the spot, but with the development agreement and understanding what Ryan said, does that, I'm not, well, John said, but I mean, does that give you any greater degree of comfort with this situation?
It gives me a little more comfort. I just don't want to see the planning commission get sold down the tracks like they did on that.
I think we have to kind of get beyond the personality part of it though, John. I don't think anyone's trying to sell the planning commission down. We're trying to advance this and try to be logically thinking. And it's not an affront to the planning commission, and that's why I'm asking you. So
I think what's come down so far is good. Yes, that gives me a lot more comfort, but I'm still not totally comfortable with it because I don't trust the developer at this point in time.
even with the agreement we're speaking about.
If you get that agreement in writing, that will make a big, big difference, yes.
Mayor, if I might, just a couple ideas off the top of the bald head. The project itself I like. I like the look of the building and the other things that you're talking about. I'm still confused with the parking because it's a moving target every time we look at it, it seems like. Parking has been a problem, as Councilmember Taylor has brought up. Every time we give an inch, we lose. And so
We brought this up when this MUO was
we
presented
did,
to us.
and I remember that very well. I don't
MOU,
remember
excuse me.
much. But because of that is why I'm partly concerned, that I'm concerned that we're still at the 1.8. I think we've opened a box, and we could open the box a little further and say, well, then we're going to increase the parking and all kinds of other variations. I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying you open a box, you open the whole box, and there are lots of parts to it. I wanted a better feel for this, so I drove down there today. That's the whole other end of town. It might as well be Salt Lake to me. I don't go over there very often. And so I drove over there, and I got behind a semi on Utah Valley Drive or whatever that road is. And I understand semis normally don't go to these smaller buildings, but you know what bobtail trucks are.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty good-sized trucks, and they'll be going in and out of there like crazy, I'm sure. That's the kind of, in my mind anyway, the kind of building that has bobtails delivering the stuff that they need. They're not going to be delivered in minivans, if I'm understanding the businesses. So I've got some concern with the trucks, and you can define them any way you want. I have a problem with the process. I think this has been, and excuse me, I'm not trying to be offensive, I think it's been a little bit of a bait and switch. I think we have a process, and yes, we're doing the appeal, but my vote is going to be that it has to go back through a planning commission, and everything has to be laid out, and no more changes, kind of a thing. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, because we're changing a code. We're not just approving a building, we're changing a code by allowing this kind of a building in this area, because that area is not zoned for that kind of a building. So if I understand it right, we're changing the zone,
We're not changing any code.
the zone, whatever you call it.
Yeah, it's a zone change.
The zone change, whatever.
So it's not a zone change. You'd be amending the master plan for the PC, for this project, this PC zone. There's an overall, unlike other development, there's not a general master plan for the area. It's similar to a zone change, but it's not a zone change. It's an amendment to the master plan for the development.
Part of how the PC zone's designed is to be more flexible. It allows for this type of thing. It's in our code already. They're following it. They're coming back and saying, hey, things have changed. We want to follow your code and change the master plan.
Well, we're getting into semantics a little bit, and I understand that. I'm just expressing some concerns, and I understand that. There was one other thought. I'm following you. didn't write it down, but that's just some of my concerns is, and again, I'm not opposed to the project. It looks like a good project. If it is a proper place to put that project, then that needs to be decided. But again, I think that's something that Planning Commission has been set up with the responsibility to do, so.
So I have a question, maybe this might speak to Woodbury. So we know Woodbury can do their project on their own, on that corner. You can build your project, it's a permitted use. It works better for you to have these things together. It's bigger, it's better, it has more tenant space, it has more parking, it has more everything.
Yeah, it's just a better project. And if we were to separate the two and build just strictly a two-story office building on ours, we wouldn't improve the parking situation. We wouldn't land with more usable parking that could be shared. And so it wouldn't create a benefit to separate the two projects in terms of what we provide for parking for the shared amenity.
Is any of this, you know, this industrial type space, I'll call it the new age industrial, does it run 24-hour shifts, or do you anticipate there being a complete purge of the parking lot at night so it's wide open, similar, because you're going to be running multiple shifts? Has that been considered?
You know, I think that Joe might have a better, more concrete answer to that than I do. The kind of the model that is working right now is, they call it clicks to bricks. Basically, nowadays what's changing with Amazon is people order stuff online, and then it gets produced and shipped from the location, which actually turns this into a sales tax producing building, which an office building is not. And that kind of a model can be run on normal day shifts. It doesn't have to be a 24-hour or a 16-hour operation.
Okay. Joe, you're about ready to get up there. Let's get you up here.
I don't really have anything to add except that we just really don't know what the tenant is or who the tenant is until it happens, until the market, you know, comes forward and the tenant comes forward. But, you know, we'd obviously be sensitive to that. And I just can't see, you know, with the office on the top there on the north, it would seem to me that would pretty much empty out and the parking would be available and the back would be more of the shifts, but it just depends on the tenant.
Yeah. I went through, the Price Group took me to a development in Draper, and they had several that were round the clock. I mean, it was, of course, some of it was COVID related. They were making test kits and things like that.
Sure.
But they couldn't, it was just automatic. One shift was coming in. I didn't see a lot of movement in the parking, but I was only there for 3 hours. But it was portrayed to me that as soon as that shift gets over, there is an overlap, even to where they have multiple, you know, shifts together and then kind of one leaves. And so I think that those are some concerns that I might have.
Yeah, you know, I would say that the way we extended the building to the west and blocked that area where the trucks would be, the idea was to shield that and to have the trucks in the rear and the parking and the, you know, worker employees on the top. That was at least the intent.
So the building would be intended, if there were longer operations in manufacturing or whatever, it would be less likely to occur at the top there where the kind of office designed portion of the project is, in proximity to the apartments. But again, we don't know who the tenants are at this point.
That is a good point, though, because when we made the shared parking agreement, it was based on the idea that we would have office, which typically has less parking in the evening, and so you have that switch. I don't have I haven't thought that through enough to really have an opinion, but it is changed the formula for how we made that original parking agreement.
It has, but this is the best we could do to approximate the same outcome. We designed this specifically to do our best job of addressing that while making the change that would help us to get the project going.
I think it's good to note that could still happen in an office environment. In my office building, it's Class A office. There's a call center, take up the second floor, and they call all parts of the world, selling their various product. And so, you know, even in an office scenario, you could have people that are there at different times of hours versus your typical 9 to 5 that are there. So I think that's just a risk you have with whoever the tenant is and what their use of that building's going to be, whether that's office or industrial.
I think
Right,
it's,
but I mean, just in general, the typical use is what I
Yeah.
was referring to.
yeah, I think if you go over Silken Slopes, it's pretty well barren at
Yes.
night.
Yes.
With occasional that, but generally barren, so, okay.
If a truck comes into, you're gonna force the trucks in on the southwest corner, that's where they would enter this project site?
That's the way it's intended to work, yeah.
And that's why you designed the northeast corner that way, so that the trucks aren't coming around that way.
Right.
If a truck does come in on the southwest corner and goes in, but can't get into a bay and has to circle around or leave the site, can they leave through that shared parking area?
I think there'd be enough room to flip the U here. I think that's the idea.
The idea is to have them turn
Yeah.
around in the dock area.
Yeah.
That's the way it's designed.
There's quite a large space there between the kind of concrete apron part of it and the asphalt part of it. There should be enough room to maneuver there without having to use the northern part of the access.
Out of curiosity, Cheryl, some of these items, things we could work out in a development agreement that could be restrictive to the land to say, hey, your delivery trucks have to come through here, your hours of operation have to be this, to be able to add some of these protections into it.
Yeah, you can put a lot of these protections into it. I think that one thing, well, the question here is really whether or not you're looking to approve the change to the master plan in terms of the use. And if you have a lot of lingering questions about the site plan, because the site plan is not before you tonight, it's just the amendment to the master plan. So if there's issues that you only want to make this amendment to the master plan if these issues on the site plan are cleaned up or guaranteed, then the development agreement would be the route to go. If that's not your concern and you're open to just whatever use and you trust that this is what they'll do, then you'd be amending the master plan. And if you just don't like the use, then of course you move to deny it. But I do think that it's important to remember tonight we're here on the master plan amendment, not the site plan approval. And if there's concerns on that, then I would suggest working with, having Adam and myself and even getting engineering involved in some of these road issues to determine some other factors that we could then present to council, more of a completed package. Some of the other concerns, because we're only seeing some of the concerns and the concerns that council is thinking about right now. I don't know what concerns the planning department has in terms of a site plan. So that might be a route to consider as well.
So the best thing to do then would be to table this so that we can work on a development agreement and then present that to the planning commission.
You could table it. The other option, and probably the easier option, would be to deny this tonight and then have them work with the planning department to develop a development agreement. Because the development agreement would go back through our planning commission and come to council.
So is it just semantics?
Or just, that's a third option out there, you approve it contingent upon a development agreement, and then at least that signals to the planning commission that we're comfortable with it, but we want to understand their concerns and what goes into the development agreement, and then that development come back to us.
Yeah, and if you want to go that route, then I would recommend that you would approve it with the execution of the amendment being upon, or the effective date of the amendment being upon the execution of the development agreement.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little confusing.
Well, it's just, to me in my world, it gives us all the safe gaps that we want with the planning commission, and it just makes it a little more expeditious. And I'm nothing if not expeditious, so I'm fine with that.
Is that what that means?
So with that, I'll just take a stab at a motion then to approve the master plan as presented with the contingency that it not go into effect until an executed development agreement forthcoming from the developer in the city.
I'll second that.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilman Shelton, second by Councilman Taylor. Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes?
Just as a preface, I'm about the process, and I think it needs to just go back. And I realize I'm probably the only one that does, but I think the process says go back to Planning Commission and bring it to us clean the way you want it with all this other baggage. That's probably the best word. So I'm going to say no.
Okay. Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Tater?
Aye.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Buck. Appreciate it. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, council members.
I'm sure glad we let the Carnesecas go home, for heaven's sakes.
Thanks.
Good idea.
I appreciate that, Mayor. I'll take that.
So, okay, item number 6 is a review and an action on an ordinance approving the partial right-of-way vacation for 900 West from approximately 350 South to 620 South related to the Lakeshore Landing subdivisions Plat A through J. Scott, we'll bring you up here.
Members of the council, this item is basically vacating parts of the right-of-way. When this land was first annexed, some of the cross-section was different than the final, what was approved. If you remember, a lot of discussions we had about changing cross-section. So this is returning right-of-way that was obtained at annexation, and we recommend approval.
Mayor, I would move to approve the ordinance approving the partial right-of-way vacation for 900 West related to Lakeshore Landing subdivision Plats A through J, and to authorize the city to sign all necessary documents.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Tater, second by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Tater?
Aye.
Okay. Item number 7A is review and action on an ordinance approving the final plat of the Calvary condominium conversion project located at 338 East State Road in the GC1 General Commercial Zone. Any questions?
Do you think we call that the conversion process because it was a county?
I don't know. Is there a representative here? Maybe he can speak to that.
Good job, Clark.
Good evening, Councilman. I'm Steve Tobias. I'm with KW Commercial. I represent the applicant, Mountain View Calvary Church. I said that wrong, Calvary Mountain View Church. First of all, I would like to thank Wendelin and Tana for helping us get this. It's been a year process to get this ready to this point, so we're grateful. We're excited. We've created the west end of the church has 4 retail spaces on the front along State Street there, and 2 of those spaces we've dedicated to create a condominium unit 100, and that's currently under purchase agreement by a salon to bring in individual hairdressers. And then the balance of the building, which would still have the restaurant and pregnancy resource, and then all the rest of the church would be condominium number 2. And so the benefit really is we're creating an ownership scenario rather than a tenant scenario, allowing this salon to have ownership, which of course increases longevity. And the benefit to the church for that is the sales proceeds are going to be used to help upgrade the church and do some additional community service. And the Planning Commission recommended unanimously for this, and so we would hope to do the same.
All right, any questions for the applicant?
This is just a great example of how things change over time. I remember when this was first built, it was World's Gym back in the day, and then bought out by the church and converted. It's kind of funny that a gym turned into a church, but they made it work, and they've been great tenants over the time, and they've added a lot to the community, and appreciate them being a part of it. Love still seeing the storefront remain. I think that's awesome to be able to see. So with that, I don't see any issues, so I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance approving the final plat of the Calgary Condominium Conversion Project located at 338 East State Road in the GC1 General Commercial Zone, and to authorize the mayor and city council to sign the plat and accept the dedication with instructions to the city recorder to withhold recording of the plat subject to all conditions identified in the public record associated with the May 5th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting.
Say hallelujah. I'll second that.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor, or Shelton, a second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate
Amen.
Item number 8 is a review and action on the American Fork Art Dye Trail Federal Aid Agreement for Local Agency Project. Scott, you just look like you're ready to roll there.
So, Mr. Mayor, Council, this is a funding agreement that we have through MAG for this trail project. This would allow it to get started. This is part of one of the several projects that the hashtag Public Works Department has been working on a lot to, to get some funding in. So with that, if you have any questions. Uh-oh.
The only question I had there was, you know, it's probably going to be, because every time this comes up, is a location of that trail. Have we actually defined where that's going to be?
No, not at this stage. I mean, that's going to be one of the things that when we get the designer on board, an engineer to look at that'll be the one option. And definitely know your feelings, and
Yeah.
and so I mean we'll want to make sure we just look and make sure there's not something that we're missing or need to look at. So,
Yeah.
This
But
would be a
this
great
isn't
thing to
set.
take back to the Parks and Trails Committee as well.
Yeah.
Now we have a whole committee for that.
Just, my wife and I walked that last night. We were waiting for our son to finish baseball practice, and it was, I think the use there along the roadway versus behind the homes, I could see multiple people. It's funny that there's sidewalk on the other side of the street, but a lot of them walk on that side that where those, the playground is at, the Pee-wee, I'm gonna call it Pee-wee soccer is at, the baseball is at. So, and we have sidewalk going up there, but then it just disconnects. Right, where the old bridge used to be at. So I think that would be helpful for people as we have our sporting programs and the congruent nature of it, being able to walk back and forth. And I love, as you get into the park and how we did the new art dye, those crossings that happen, I think it would just be better that way. But that's my 2 cents, so.
Okay, noted. Any questions?
Just a quick comment. Good sales job to MAG or to UDOT or whoever to get almost $600,000 with nothing concrete to show them and say, just give us some money, we'll spend it, and we'll do it right. I'm complimenting you. I'm serious about it. I'm making fun of the process a little bit, but great.
no, it's good, and there is some concept, that's involved with general. So, but thank you. Yeah, it was.
I appreciate that. Mayor, I move to approve the American Fork Art Dye Trail Federal Aid Agreement for Local Agency Project as presented and authorize the city to execute the associated agreement.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor, second by Councilmember Hunter. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Mayor, I'd also like to make a point. I have never seen in my life a sheen on a dome. And I think Kevin and Ryan, who have both mocked themselves for being bald, have got a little lesson to learn. Some people come in a press shirt and a nice tie. Scotty comes in with all three.
It's
I'm
the
telling you,
polish.
that dome is Scott, that's a work of
It, it's my naturally cheery countenance.
That is a work of beauty, I'm telling
Yeah.
you.
Okay, let's move on. Item number 9, review and action of a pioneering agreement with Bishop's Holdings LLC for system improvements along 1500 South. It's been a while in the making. Any questions on this agreement?
The number, right? $5,000,
$6,000.
$5,900.
It's a small amount of infrastructure, but
I
it's,
mean, normally, like, I'm looking at these.
every dollar
billions of
counts.
dollars, I'm like,
That's right.
is that $5 million? Okay.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the pioneering agreement with Bishop Holdings LLC for the system improvements along 1500 South.
Okay. A motion by Councilmember Shelton. Second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Hunter. Aye. Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Tater.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Okay, item number 10, review and action on a resolution adopting fireworks restrictions for American Fork City. Chief, I'm going to have you just come up for a minute and just maybe generally talk about, is there anything different this year as opposed to last year, as you see it?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, we did change some minor language from last year. There was a debate that it might be confusing, so Sherilyn helped me clean it up a little bit. It was just basically to clear up, the map and stuff is all the same. It was just to say any legal firework can be set off in, parks that we allow or the city streets. That's basically it. Everything else is identical. What's that?
I said that was my loophole, but actually I'm terrified of fireworks.
So we corrected that, and it's the same as it's been for the last 4 or 5 years, so.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd move to approve the resolution adopting the annual fireworks restrictions in American Fork City.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Tater,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Tater.
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter. Aye. Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Okay, item number 11 is a review and action on a resolution approving the interlocal cooperative agreement with MAG for funding the 700 North Connection Project.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is another funding project that the hashtag Public Works Department has been working on through getting funding for this trail. For this trail, hooked up on the trail for this road. So I distracted myself a little bit there. It's a very big trail for very big vehicles. So this is the connection for 700 North, and this would allow us to continue to proceed with that project, and really a future item here on the agenda is even getting the design going. So any questions you have, recommend approval.
We've kind of deferred a few times on this. Does this just solidify that, and is there a date when that money expires?
So it does solidify it, and there isn't necessarily an official date. It's usually, but it's something that they want you to get it going. And so we have deferred, as you know, and extended.
It does say 3 years from next.
Does it? Okay, then my apologies. I guess that is firm. I'm sorry. I stand corrected.
It's, you know what, though, in
It's-
MAG, we all the time look at these and say we'll extend them out.
Yeah.
As long as the MAG board meets, I think that we've had others, that we've just extended out a couple of years. I mean, for heaven's sakes, look at the Canal Boulevard.
Yeah.
How long did we hang on to the funding for that, and then only to add 4 million of it towards the end, so.
I was just going to joke, that's maybe the east-west connectors around here are the time delays to get those segments and those connections made. It seems to take a lot longer.
Seem to.
My biggest worry is looking at that and the escalation of costs and
Yeah.
the delays. So that's why I was wondering time commitment, and if we're moving forward, I'd love to hear that we got the design going as far as right-of-way acquisition. I know we've talked about that in the past, but is that something that's continuing to move forward and we've got resolution on that?
If I can speak to that one a little bit. So we have been working with the property owner. The property owner actually now has, not a consultant, what am I? An engineer,
An
and a
agent.
developer, yeah, his agent, that we are working with. I actually just sent over today a right to entry on the property that the property owner has, through their agent, has said that they will sign so that we can get on the property and start surveying everything. So as soon as we have that, we should be good to start that process. So we're getting there. We are making progress. We're trying not to go the condemnation route if we don't have to. Based on our conversations in the last couple of weeks, I'm not thinking that that's going to be necessary. We did, however, send out that initial notice. So we started the movement that direction, but we obviously don't want to do that if we don't have to. So, but there is progress being made, and quite frankly, if there's not enough in the next couple months, then we will end up having to go in and get that land.
Yeah, I'd just say, land's not getting any cheaper, so the sooner the better. I want to make a fair deal where it's fair, but at the same time, looking at the city's interest, and since we got to, I believe we have to purchase that right away, so our liabilities are going up as well. So thanks for the update.
And I would expect to have an agreement coming forward to council here in the next probably 2 months, just to give us a little bit of safety. Because if not, then we're gonna have to go alternative route.
Mr. Mayor and Councilman, if I could add the other thing too is with regards to MAG, we've been making sure that we communicate regularly, constantly. So while we've extended a few times, it's been with their full knowledge and approval. They're very aware of the situation. And one of the things that I do appreciate with MAG is things do change. Councilman, you mentioned costs go up sometimes. As we get into the design and really start getting a good firm cost estimate, if the costs do exceed the amount that we have, it's I don't want to say an easy, it's a fairly streamlined process with going back to the TAC and the MAG to be able to get additional funding. So I'm confident that we would be able to do that if need be.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Scott. Any
Mayor,
other
I move
questions?
to adopt the resolution approving the interlocal cooperative agreement with MAG for funding the 700 North Connection project as presented, and authorize the city to sign the attached agreement.
Okay.
I'll second.
A motion by Councilmember Taylor, second by Councilmember Hunter. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
All right, item number 12 is a review and action on an agreement for engineering services with CRS Consulting Engineering for the design of the 700 North Connection project. Scott, it's up to you. This what, the third time you've been up here for?
I think so. I think so.
Oh, it's like, okay.
No problem. Glad to do it.
3.
Yeah.
Yes, hashtag Public Works. That's right. This is the hashtag Public Works actual RFP process that followed to get these, solicit the proposals, receive the proposals, and ranked them. And this company, CRS, came out on top for this project, and so recommend approval.
Mayor, I've moved to approve the selection of CRS engineers for the design of 700 North Connection project as presented, and authorize the city to sign the attached agreement.
Motion by Councilmember Taylor,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Item number 13, review and action on agreement with CRS Engineering for the design of the 300 West Pacific Drive intersection.
So, Mr. Mayor, as you can see from these items and members of the council, we had a flurry of proposals going out and getting going on a lot of these projects that have been funded. So the CRS also had the winning proposal for this project. And So we'd recommend your approval as well. And if I could just mention just briefly about this project, in the master plan for the city, it is anticipated that a signal will be placed at this intersection and at some point in the future at 400 West. I know there may be some question, in fact, there was a question I was asked about why this one first. And in looking at the traffic patterns, analyzing where they go, and really the extent of the streets, 300 West is a major street. It goes all the way down and essentially goes under the freeway and becomes 200 South, heads to the north as well, whereas 400 West, while it may be today, is used a little bit more, that intersection. We believe, and in looking at in consulting with our traffic engineers who helped with the master plan, believe that it's best to really put this first signal here, that some of the traffic that's currently using 400 will then start using this instead, because it's able to get out. So this would be the first of two, but believe that, again, this is probably this is the best place to put this signal.
Are we widening that at all to add some turn lanes and things of that nature?
So it's the,
Right.
Looking at it, I mean, again, we don't have the design yet, but most likely, because it's pretty narrow in some places, but we're going to be looking at exactly those things. Hate to commit exactly right now what the design will look like.
We tried on 400 West a few years ago, when Adam J.H. was mayor.
Yeah.
And Union Pacific came back and said, no way, we're letting you widen on those tracks. And so it's just always been kind of the linchpin.
It's challenging to do that, but, this is something that we'll do what we need to do to make sure we get a good design that's going to be safe and functional, so.
One of the things I noticed, just a comment, is that they've got CRS has a person on staff who apparently has dealt with the railroad
That's
quite a bit.
correct.
And that, for me, was really encouraging, that at least maybe somebody's been able to, we better shut up in case they're listening.
Well,
Well-
hopefully they are. They can know that we're not real happy and reach out to us.
Not new news we're revealing here.
Right.
They had a good proposal, and we figured that'll help keep it on track, so.
Yeah, I think that's a great, if everything else were equal, that would be a tag.
Man, only David got that one. I'm sorry. Keep it on track.
Well, we got it, Scott.
Okay, all right. It just wasn't good. All right, fine.
I'll make a motion to approve the selection of CRS engineers for the design of 300 West Pacific Intersection Design Project as presented and authorize the city to sign the attached agreement.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Shelton,
Second?
second by Councilmember Barnes. All right. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Tater?
Aye.
Okay, item number 14, a review and action on an agreement with Civil Science Engineering for the design of 1100 South, 500 East intersection. Much needed intersection.
Much needed. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this one, I'm again really excited for because of the traffic that is going in right there. It is needed to put in the signal and to do some widening, some improvements along that. And that's become a very, very busy intersection with the businesses that are expanding there. And we're ready to get going on this one too. So with that, I'd recommend approval.
Did CRS bid on this one?
I'm pretty sure
I'm
they
just
did.
curious
No,
why
I'm
they-
pretty sure
why
they
got
did.
2 out of the 3.
And it's,
just kind of curious.
you know,
Kevin
it's
would like them to have the trifecta.
the trifecta, the hat trick, I
Just
guess,
was
right?
curious.
I'm pretty sure they did, but this is one of the
You win
things.
some, you lose some.
And with all of our consultants, we have a good relationship with them, but it's important that they know that each one is a competition. Nobody
stands on
gets the
its own,
inside
yeah.
track, and they've got to put their best foot forward, and it won't always be the same.
Something like this sends that message.
That's right.
So I'll make a motion to approve the selection of civil science engineers for the design of 1100 South, 500 East intersection design project as presented and authorize the city to sign the attached agreement.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor, Shelton, second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
All right, item number 15. Yes. Review and action on an agreement with Neil Allred et al. Regarding real property along transportation corridor.
I had a question on this one. It references a map, but I didn't see a map in there. And my biggest question was just, I see where Tyree and his wife are signing this. Does that include their property that they have? Or is it for a different entity location?
No, this is for their property, well, this is for the property that they are the trustees of.
Okay.
So it's not their personal property. It's only impacting the property that was removed from the ag protection. This agreement was with all the property owners who were impacted by that council decision.
And since they're in the county, that wasn't impacted because they were still in the county at the time. And
Correct.
still are.
The other piece of this is, quite frankly, the agreement was with those that filed the litigation against
Yeah.
the city. So Tyree was not part of that in his personal capacity.
Right, right. No, I
As
just-
for the map, it should be, double check, it's only going to refer back to the property that was taken out.
And I'm guessing that's just the north side. That's what I was wondering on the road. It's just the north side of the road.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, because the road will be from the edge of the current road north.
North. Okay.
Yeah.
I had a phone conversation with Sherlyn as well, and I was very impressed trying to tighten up the annexation agreement to define things, so hopefully we won't have any more ambiguity going forward or differences of opinion on how that is. So I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with Neil Allred et al. Regarding the property along Transportation Corridor 200 South.
Okay, a motion by Councilmember Shelton,
A second.
second by Councilmember Hunter. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Hunter?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Okay, item number 16. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mayor.
Motion by Councilmember Shelton,
I'll second.
second
Hate
by
to see it come to an
Councilmember
end, but I'll go ahead and second.
Taylor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.